Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there. Welcome to the program. Glad to be here on time today. Oh, Lord. So, I suppose a lot of things to talk about. I had assumed, by the way, for those of you expecting Potter, you will recall that he has been switched by his own request to Fridays. So he will be here on Friday. Tom Sokolowski tomorrow. You get just plain old moi today. So I had assumed that today the topic would overwhelmingly be Syria, the president's speech, but somehow I don't think it is going to be. I don't know. I thought the speech was a fine speech. I thought it was very good. I really did. I mean, I think he really laid out the reasons, and the reasons that I found compelling and still do for taking action, but quite clearly the strangeness of perhaps, bless you, being saved by his enemy Vladimir Putin. And diplomacy now holds sway. We'll see for how long. The other completely forgot this unforgettable date was today, and when I turned on my television this morning when I was doing my toiletries, and I heard Katie Couric's voice, and she said, "It's unknown why, but a plane appears to have," and they just had a still. I thought, oh my God. So I guess they do this every year, replay in real time. So it's exactly the same time it was at 9/11/2001. They replay how we all became acquainted with what was happening. And that is compelling. Compelling video. Because I did happen to have that on. I was doing a 10 a.m. radio show at WPTT. So I generally leave the house around 9:30. And this was all happening right before 9. I had gotten my kid off to school. And I remember staring at that building with the hole in it. And to hear them and, to hear the cognitive dissonance in their brains and what they felt they could say and whether you could tell was going on in their heads. I mean, being professional journalists, they weren't going to say, "Oh my God!" They weren't. They were very calm, cool, quizzical, whatever. They were thinking, what could this be? How could that happen? And how big, and then talking to eyewitnesses. And then they're on the air and the second plane hits. And that's when the disbelief starts coalescing into something of recognition that this is some coordinated attack. This is no And then there's Miklashevsky they go to at the Pentagon who says, well, people here are saying they do believe this is a terrorist-related. They are concerned now about possible attacks on other venues in New York or perhaps elsewhere. And I'm screaming at my TV this morning, yeah, like right where you're standing. That's where the next one's going to hit. Yes, other areas. Jeez. And then you think of, at that same time, those brave, wonderful people on 93 were... What a day, huh? What a day. Changed everything, or not. Wow. So anyway, I woke up to that today, and, didn't wake up to it, but I was... It's something. I didn't even realize it was that day. So... is that one of those, that is definitely Kennedy's assassination, but that shows how old I am. Kennedy's assassination and that event are the two where absolutely you remember where you were. Absolutely. Okay, so to add a little, to get off that because it's so depressing. I mean, I'm looking out this window at skyscrapers, and I'm because I just try to imagine a jet crashing, right? I'm looking at the K&L Gates building. Imagine that. Followed within 10 minutes by another. Wow. Okay, I'll stop. Feel free, whatever. I got a great tweet that I have to share with you. It came in two parts, and this is from a guy named Michael Sanserino. And his first tweet, and I didn't know this, apparently at the Pirates game at Texas Rangers Stadium on Monday, a Pirate fan was arrested. Jess, do you know? He apparently stormed the field at some point. It's definitely not something you're supposed to do. I did not know this, but so this guy, Michael Sanserino, tweets, the Pirates fan arrested Monday after storming the field was Hopewell native and current Dallas resident Ryan Matthew Rock, age 29. Okay, well, that's the first I heard anybody had stormed the field. But the next tweet is the funny one. Rock said police asked him if he was stupid. His response, well, what kind of person cheers for a losing team for 20 years? An idiot. An idiot who is now overcome. Well, that was the victory. So he went berserk, and that's a perfect response to the Dallas police. What are you, stupid? Yeah. What kind of person cheers for a losing team for 20 years? I'm an idiot. Way to go. So I think that's a great quote, and that's 29-year-old Ryan Rock, one of our own, who's now in trouble in Dallas. Okie doke. I got to get my email up for you guys. Sorry. Also, sports related. Don't worry. Okay. We got a call. Hello.
Hello, it's Eeyore calling.
It's who calling?
Eeyore.
Eeyore. Hi.
Yes, the sky is falling guy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know, my political views don't have nothing to do with my regular everyday life. I sleep fine at night. I might complain on your show, but I don't let it get to me. I can always shut the power button or hit the mute button. Ain't no problem.
Oh.
What I wanted to ask you is whatever happened to Guy when you used to do a show either on the television or on the radio, and he used to call, he might not even call himself this anymore. Maybe he calls it, I don't know. He used to call himself Sissy White Liberal. Whatever happened to that guy?
He's in Philadelphia.
Okay.
He moved there. His wife got a great job there, and so he's there.
So he never calls your show then?
No, his real name was Tom Kovac. And he and Clarence from Canonsburg, who calls the show, became good friends, meeting each other essentially on because they were both listeners to the show. I got to know both of them, and Tom had the courage, sissy white liberal, to actually run against Congressman Tim Murphy. He attempted to. He entered politics, went into the Democratic Party primary, and was so disillusioned by what he saw and by what occurred. Oh. And I don't know if he's ever recovered from that. But a great guy, okay. A great guy, sissy white liberal.
Yeah, I thought he was very intelligent.
Yes, truly is. And I'm glad to hear that you don't that you can let this stuff
like
go.
That. I may sound like that when I call your show, but really not. I just rant and rave on your show, and then I try to get you ginned up for the show, so you start ranting and raving.
I gotcha. Okay, so you're.
I'll see you later.
Okay, bye. Bye. So he's a provocateur. There's a new wrinkle in my sense of him. How cute. Oh, my. Okay. I just have a few other little sports-related things. One is a baseball thing, but it's just an observation. It does not have to do with sport itself. And some of you who, like me, are curious about human behavior. Maybe some of you would have a answer to a question that I had. If you're watching a game, they do, cutaway shots from the action. They cut away and maybe show you the players in the dugout. And they're either, sitting there or they're leaning on the little fence. And to a man, at least that was true last night, there was a shot of them all sort of leaning. And there might have been about 6 people in the shot. Every single one of them was engaged in an oral activity of either chewing and spitting seeds, chewing gum, doing peanuts. They were all you see were jaws working. Every one of them. Intent look on their face, all looking forward, not interacting with each other, and all these jaws going. Clint Hurdle being the most notorious of all, in that I don't think he ever stops, and he's a gum guy. And I often think the hardest thing in the world would be to be Clint Hurdle's jaw. How painful, or else how strong your jaw would have to be. I don't know, but I think he's going to end up with troubles later. Okay, so what is there is no way that every guy on a baseball team, or 90% of the guys on a baseball team, would choose, really, to handle the stress and or boredom, stress and downtime of a game in the same manner. Do you know what I mean? We all handle stress in different ways. But somehow, if you're a baseball player, there's only one way. You're supposed to channel all of that energy that you are feeling during a game, and that is to work your jaw in some manner, that it has to be oral. And I'm sorry, but I just thought there's no way that is the behavior of choice for every baseball player. But it is the behavior that is evidenced. So there must be an incredible amount of peer pressure the minute you become a serious baseball player to start working your jaw in some way what is that about? You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. So it's some kind of a bonding thing. It's some kind of a... But I find human behavior fascinating because there's a lot of those guys who, by their own, would not have come up with, I'm going to sit and eat 500,000, sunflower seeds, and I'm going to spit the seeds, or I'm going to this and that. At least fewer of them are doing tobacco. But why the blah, 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 blah? First of all, it is extremely unattractive to look at. But my point is there's no way that on an individual basis, all of those guys would choose that method of behavior for dealing with the latent energy they must all have going and adrenaline. No way. Like me, you know what I would do? I'd knit. Right? I'd knit. So, can you imagine? I mean, what if instead of spitting and chewing, baseball players, to a man, sat on the bench during a game and crocheted or knitted? That would look funny. All of them doing that. Well, I got news for you. All of them chewing is funny, too. We're just used to it. And I want to say one other thing about baseball player behavior. They don't grab their crotches as much as they used to. Nowhere near. That used to be something that drove me crazy. Always grabbing crotches, rearranging things, blah, 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 blah. And I hardly ever...
Jeff Flock does it a lot.
Who does it?
Jeff Flock.
Okay. But I don't see it. You don't see it as much. And I want to credit the baseball players of today for not doing that. I do. Okay, one other sports-related thing, kind of, sort of, and that is coming up, I guess this Sunday, the Green Bay Packers are playing the Washington team, feeling the pressure of their name being essentially a racist name. And says here that Packer fans who walk into Lambeau Field are going to be seeing a large protest by members of the Oneida Nation. Now, members of the Oneida Nation have great standing at Lambeau Field because one of the major entryways to Lambeau Field is called the Oneida Nation Gate. It's got their name over it. They've obviously put money into having that. So, sort of like, you might have a corporate gate of some sort, the PNC gate, the USX gate. In Green Bay, it's the Oneida Nation. And so they don't particularly appreciate this team coming in with a name that is, if you think about it, is racist. Just on its face, racist. But what stops me here is a quote from one of the Oneida Nation elected officials who is behind this protest. I found his quote fascinating. I love it, and I wanted to share it with you. He has a very un-Indian name, Brandon Stevens, elected official of the Oneida Nation. He says this, quote, "The warrior image is not the image we want to be portrayed. We have moved past the time of Western encroachment and how the West was won. And that's where all the images like this are taken from. Those days when we were a valiant enemy." I think that is like poetic. when we were a valiant enemy. And he goes on to say, today, that's long gone. That is not who Native Americans are. That's not who Indians are. We are educators. We are community leaders. We have families. We are workers and taxpayers. And we are not redskins. So, I've never heard, I don't know, I thought that was just, wow, we've moved past the time of Western encroachment. He's talking about us. Western encroachment. Where all these images of us are taken from. When we were a valiant enemy. Makes me cry. I also want to say one other thing about Barack Obama and his speech last night. He's a good-looking man. That's all I want to say. He's a good-looking man. It's the most beautiful eyes. I'm sorry, just a randy old lady watching the president's speech, couldn't help but notice, oh, mister, you are good-looking! All right, I'll stop. Okay, quickly, Thomas has sent an email. This is it. Everyone has been saying for a couple of weeks that nothing about our response to Syria was making sense. Putin was not happy with al-Assad having chemical weapons, but was unable to do anything about it without appearing to abandon his ally. So, is it possible the Obama-Putin deal has been in the works for a year? Obama's red line statement was the beginning. The whole icy posture between the two leaders the last two times they met was a ruse to convince everyone that they didn't like each other, so that when Putin took the plan that they had hatched to Assad, the calculation would be that it would be better to agree than to be attacked. Obama throwing the decision to Congress was a delaying tactic. Thomas writes, maybe I've been watching too many episodes of Mission Impossible. Uh-huh. Or maybe we find out in 10 years that we were all hoodwinked. Well, Thomas, I like it, but no. Come on. I don't think so. I don't think this was in the works. I think there was a lot of accidental. I think the red line comment was, hadn't been planned. And I think Kerry's comment the other day seemingly hadn't been planned. Although, again, yes, it is conceivable that a reporter is planted to ask this question, or they know the question would come up, and that offhandedly he would throw that out. And if so, he's a damn fine actor, the Secretary of State. I don't know. Whatever, I'm very happy, because it is more satisfying to me to at least have this respite from the drums of war so that we can, potentially resolve this without resorting to violence ourselves, right? It would be more satisfying. All righty, I'm going to break away for a bit, and we'll be back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper Annual Fall Arts Preview is available now. Pick up one today for an in-depth look and an exciting season of arts and culture in the Burgh. Plus Graham Nash, Rancid, The Lion King, and news of the weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone with GPS-enabled listings at citypapermobile.com. Does your furnace and air conditioning run nonstop? Are your heating and cooling bills too high? Contact Pittsburgh Foam Insulation. Their certified installers are ready to insulate your home using the best wall insulation products available, and the owner has over 20 years' experience. Pittsburgh Foam Insulation is locally owned and is not a franchise, so unlike their competitors, there are no franchise fees that will be passed on to you, which means Pittsburgh Foam Insulation is able to offer their customers a lower, more affordable price than their competitor. Call 412-856-6100 for a free, no-obligation estimate or visit PittsburghFoamInsulation.com.
When is grave digging hilarious? When it comes from the madcap mind of Martine McDonough, writer of In Bruges and The Lieutenant of Inishmore. Pick Theatre presents A Skull in Connemara, with Mick, the widow gravedigger, Martine, his numbskull assistant, Mary Johnny, the pochine-swilling granny, and Thomas, the detective wannabe. You'll laugh your own skull off at this show, playing September 12th through 28th. Visit picktheatre.org or call 412-561-6000 for tickets.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Chuck writes that what I was watching is, NBC's broadcast from 9/11. And he says, I find the rebroadcast fascinating. It is. It just is on a number of levels. 15 minutes after the second plane hit, she's talking about Matt Lauer and Katie Couric, they still aren't using the word terrorism. Are you sure? I think she alludes to the possibility. And before they did allude to the first terrorist attack on the Trade Center. I think they were exercising journalistic prudence in that they were dealing with an obviously breaking news event happening in real time in which people clearly were dying, and it was a huge catastrophe. And the fact that they kept speculation when they didn't have any, they didn't have a government official saying this is an act of terror. But it took them a while, and I thought that was just because they didn't want to. You just didn't want to believe it. They kept trying to make the planes smaller than they were. I don't think that was I think that was just a little plane. That was just a little, how could it be it was just impossible. And Chuck writes, and after the first tower fell, it took Katie and Matt almost 15 minutes to realize that the tower had actually fallen. They couldn't see through the smoke, so they had no ability to, wow. And Chuck writes, and just 45 minutes into the broadcast, Katie Couric mentions the name Osama bin Laden, purely out of speculation. But yeah, her speculations throughout were pretty dead on. And Chuck says, I would similarly be fascinated to hear a rebroadcast of you and Doug and Jerry that morning. Yeah, I would too. Of course, it doesn't exist. If it does, I don't have it. I never keep anything. But we spent 9 hours straight on the air. I mean, I obviously raced over to the station, and Jerry did the show before mine, and he was due to leave at 10. I said, you ain't leaving, you stay here. And then Doug, who was due in after me at 1 o'clock, he came in. And the three of us just rode through the day, reacting and interacting and taking calls. And I remember we were doing, public service announcements as well, because there was a lot of people racing out of the downtown here. And there was gridlock on the roads, and there was some panic about, this and that. And there were parents trying to get their children, get them out of school. And I remember trying to tamp that down. by saying that the schools are asking parents to please just leave your children here. They are perfectly safe. That, the sight of hysterical parents plucking their children out of classes is more disruptive to everybody than not. And parents overwhelmingly did not listen to that. I have told the story that my kid, to this day, says to me, there was just me and 2 other kids left in the class.
Really?
That was it.
Wow.
And I said, and did you feel unloved? Did you think your mother didn't care for you? And he wasn't sure, because that's what it would look like. As another reason that you wonder why I can't stand the parents of today. God, because they're always making me look bad. I called a friend eventually when it was clear that no one was paying attention to that, and asked her to get my son eventually. But I couldn't even understand that response. I really couldn't. Oh, because there's a terrorist attack here and a terrorist attack there, that means your children are about to die? I don't understand people. I don't. I live my life in a state of constant befuddlement at human behavior. I do. I'm thinking of that book by the neurologist Oliver Sacks called, what was it called, An Anthropologist on Mars? I feel like I'm an anthropologist on Mars sometimes, because I do not have the same impulses that so many people do seemingly have, whether it's baseball players chewing or whether it's hysterical parents on 9/11, despite the fact that they're being told to calm down, refusing to calm down, and grabbing their children. And I would say to parents, why did you do that? I had to have them with me. I didn't get it. I also couldn't go because I had a job. My job at that point as sort of a journalist, more so than not, was to stay at my post. So a lot of parents couldn't run and get their kids. But I didn't understand that, and I still don't. And if anybody can explain it to me, because I also do think that the impact, the disruption, and I think that does create more stress on the children than if parents were to have done what they were asked to do, which is to suck it up and let the kids have a relatively normal day, right? But I don't get it, never will. Here's some human behavior for you, too. Remember I told you the other day about the SWAT team killing a 107-year-old guy? Well, I know more about it now. The 107-year-old man who the SWAT team killed, which of course was unnecessary, was legally blind. And he was killed because he was shooting off a gun. Now, here's the piece of news that blew me away. The 107-year-old man had just purchased the gun a month ago. Okay. 107-year-old legally blind man walks into a gun shop in the United States of America, in this case, Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and says, I want to buy a gun. No problem. And that gun did not protect him one bit, now did it? That gun, he's dead now. 107-year-old legally blind man had no difficulty buying a gun. And we were talking about in the great state of Iowa, that blind people there can carry concealed weapons and can carry open carry. Blind! This is all you have to know about this country being insane. And everybody says this poor guy, 107 years old, was a peaceful man, was a good man, was a church-going, was not mentally defective, but he was 107 years old, and obviously something went a little screwy. And the SWAT team came by and killed him. People with guns, be it the 107-year-old blind man or the SWAT team, creating death when it didn't have to be. The blind man shouldn't have had a gun. If he didn't have a gun, he'd still be alive to enjoy another whatever. What would he have left? On the actuarial tables, he already was on well beyond. But, and right around here, in response to the school shootings, you know, a lot of people's reaction is, well, we got to deal with these shootings by making sure that we got guns all over our schools. Now, so the intelligentsia in the Charleroi area school district decided they would hire armed security in their schools. And one of the people that they hired is a guy named Val Smith. He's 41 years old. Now, the reason I know that Val Smith is an armed security guard for the Charleroi area school district is because Mr. Smith was arrested the other day by Charleroi police for recklessly endangering people and public drunkenness, waiving his concealed weapons permit and his gun around in a gas station and shouting at everybody, "I shoot to kill!" Smith was hired as an armed security officer because he already had clearance to carry a handgun. Only in America, truly. People talk about American exceptionalism, and they're referring to this sense that we are better, bigger, better, richer, more wondrous than all. But I would disagree with that, but I would say we are exceptional, and there is American exceptionalism in many ways. Some of them good, and some of them not. And a true case of American exceptionalism is our obscene love affair with guns. Obscene and insane love affair with guns. Just as I can't comprehend the reactions of a lot of people to things, as I was saying, the rest of the world looks on us and our behavior with slack-jawed, dumbfounded disbelief. And I'm with them. My. All righty. If anybody does want to opine about or talk about your reactions to the president's speech or any of that, because I did give it short shrift, feel free. But I just thought it was a good speech. And I kept thinking, what is the worst thing to be? Yesterday was to be his speechwriter, because events kept changing, and whatever speech it was he thought he was giving is not the speech he ended up giving. So you had to have a extremely flexible and quick-witted speechwriter on top of it throughout the day. That would have been a headache-inducing assignment, without a doubt. Going to take my final break now, and we'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. This week, 50% off tickets to the City Theater's Tony Award-winning play, Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike. Supplies are limited. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. bergbargains.com.
Les Ludwig, your independent, self-financed, clean candidate for mayor of Pittsburgh. You've heard the saying, same old. If we don't change what we're doing, we can only expect the same results. Let's look at what the Democratic Party leadership of your lifetime is asking you to do on Election Day. They want you to forget that they and Ravenstahl have not lived up to minority contracts and the jobs involved in it. If government promises work and jobs and wants to leave it for the next candidate, will it ever get done? How can we trust Peduto and especially the leadership when they continue to act this way? Are they hiding something worse than Harper's misdeeds? Vote November 5th and remember, same old. Embrace change and work willingly with it. Think outside the party's box. Make Les Ludwig your mayor and join his march to clean government and keeping promises.
Come to Little's for all of your back-to-school needs. Little's has everything for all ages to stay in style for this upcoming school season. Check out the large selection from Doc Marten, Steve Madden, UGG, Clarks, Lely Kelly, New Balance, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Listening to Mr. Ludwig talk about Ravenstahl and Harper. As you know, they're sort of back in the news. Harper, former police chief, will be, I guess, formally... I thought he did plead guilty already. I'm confused about that, but he's got a day in court for some reason in October, I believe, yeah. And the mayor is back in the news because his girlfriend, or former girlfriend, and his chief of staff were called before the grand jury yesterday. Hello.
Hey, Lynn. Good morning.
Hi.
George from Moon.
Yes, George.
All positive.
Okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Either way.
Okay, I want to give you 4 positive things.
Mm-hmm.
The Pirates won yesterday.
Boy, but they sure almost tried not to.
Yeah,
God,
but
did you watch to the bitter? I mean, it's just like you think, oh, they won, and then you still keep it on just because you want to see the. Jeez!
Oh, you almost sound like my wife again. She watches the Steelers, and if they're starting to lose by the half, she turns off the set and.
No, I don't turn it off. They did win, but they scared me again.
Yeah, well, okay, I said positive now.
All right.
A win is a win. I don't care how it is.
That's right. We won again. Right.
Okay.
2 in a row.
Second thing is the great thing that happened with Obama's considering a more reasonable path.
That's good, too.
I think it's excellent.
Yeah.
I think we now have a respite of really pressing other things thanks to the Russians and Obama. I think Obama and Putin are working this, and they have been working this. And believe me, I'm not so young and naive that I think that all grand and glorious has come. But it's a better path than just pulling a quick trigger. And I think you agree with me.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
I can agree with some of the points on his speech, disagree with his points on his speech last night, but in delaying the vote in the Congress for taking military action is excellent.
Yep.
And I think that's great. That's a positive thing that now we can contemplate getting a group of people together if they want to do military action, which can still happen, and also that we can pursue, let the United Nations and everybody else including the Russians, pursue this thing about the weapons. Excellent. Good thing. Excellent, good thing.
Yeah.
And I knew you would agree. Shake your head.
I do.
Okay, number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, the International Space Station. I always bring this up as a positive thing. The 3 cosmonauts landed last night, healthy and young and in good shape and everything. 2 Russians, 1 American. Expedition 37 from the International Space Station, 16 nations working on a science lab space project that's been going for 13 years.
Yeah.
And it's cooperation that you wouldn't believe between America and Russia and others.
Well,
absolutely positive.
What's fascinating is we really don't Russia. We don't do much of anything anymore, do we? Russia is, I mean, all of the. Do we even send rockets up to it anymore? No.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that's what people are missing out on.
I thought everything happened. The Russians were the ones who were putting. I mean, American astronauts are on Russian rockets.
Well, the short and the skinny of it is that the shuttle, they pulled the plug on that because George Bush and his space experts decided it was too dangerous to continue to fly.
Uh-huh.
It could have flown for another 100 missions, the 4 of them.
Right.
Or 3 of them. But they decided not to. So when Obama came in, he can reconfigure the program, and there are 3 other vehicles traveling to the space station. But only the Russians are bringing somebody home right now.
Okay, all right.
But by next year, there will be 3 capsules coming back. 2 of them will be commercial, and 1 will be Russian, and another one will be NASA. So there will be 5 capsules, spaceships going to the space station and coming back.
Okay.
So we're just out of it short and paying the Russians transportation up and back, but that's only for a couple of years.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's why you don't probably hear about it.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You don't.
Okay, now 4th thing that's positive is that, and this is another technical type of stuff. The International Formula One group, you've heard about Formula One racing, that high-speed racing they do through European cities?
Yes.
South America and the U.S.?
Yes.
They've agreed on an electric Formula One to promote electric vehicles, and it will be an international race only without gasoline motors, and it will start next year, and they've already designed cars for it and everything, and it will be a regular race that will highlight the use of those technologies to further advance electric vehicles.
Cool.
Those are my 4 positives.
Those are very good, and I thank you for them, and I feel lighter. I feel more hopeful. My blood pressure's down. I thank you.
And medication, they're probably lowering the prices on your medication, I heard, too.
Oh, no, that'll never happen. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
All righty, George. Thanks. Bye. Oh, yeah. So anyway, I have to tell you, I'm no fan of Ravenstahls, but doesn't it look like this grand jury really is? I mean, I'm surprised. Jess, have you been called? We're the only people, I think, who have not been called before the grand jury. I mean, it just seems like they're... I don't know. I mean, I can't believe it's still meeting, and they're digging into his ex-girlfriend who works as a salesperson at KD Television. Talking to Yaron Zober, his chief of staff. Zober, I'm sure, would have information, but I don't know. They sure want him, don't they? I mean, there's no other way to read it. And Chris Potter did tweet yesterday about the word of the day being a fact witness, because that is what the attorneys for Yaron Zober and this woman from KD, the girlfriend, called them called their clients. They are there as fact witnesses. And Potter, I mean, it is a funny term. I'd never heard it before. And it does beg the question, which Potter suggested, well, if they're a fact witness, then what are the other guys? Are they guys who are called before the grand jury to just make things up? I mean, wouldn't anybody be a fact witness? You take an oath, and you're supposed to tell the truth. That would be facts as you know them. I don't know. So I'd never heard that term either. Also in the legal realm, I am getting such a kick out of these phone taps on the gambling operation in the Mon Valley with all these characters. It's a riot. It's a riot, the way they talk and the whole thing. I love this guy, but I think he's going down. What's his name? Porky Malokey. Ronald. It's a riot, and I do. If you're not reading these stories, give yourself a treat, and read this stuff. It is funny as hell. Although I think some of this is going to cost him some friendships because one of his associates and a longtime friend, Red Kowalski, he calls him, and this is printed in the paper, so now Red knows what Porky really thinks of him. And what Porky said about Red is, he's dumb as a box of rocks. And he was laughing because he apparently had been trying to teach Red the mathematics involved in the gaming industry that they were in. And after 18 years of trying to teach him, Porky apparently has just given up because Red is dumb as a box of rocks. I love it. And this, I guess this could be considered good news. I saw this in the Wall Street Journal. I really didn't see it in the local paper, which surprised me, but one of the executives, former executive of Massey Energy, those are the guys that owned the Big Branch mine in West Virginia, which blew up about 3 years ago now and was the worst coal mining disaster in the United States in 40 years, taking the lives of 29 miners. One of the executives there was sentenced yesterday to close to 4 years, almost 4 years in federal prison. You know, when something like this happens, it just doesn't seem like any of the suits ever pay. So it's good to know. David Hughart, former president of a Massey operating unit, he's the highest-ranking former company official charged in the case. But the one you want is this chief executive, the guy who owned it, Blankenship. He's the big guy. And he's such a big guy in West Virginia, and I don't know if the feds are going to get him. But apparently the man that was sentenced yesterday has, in a plea hearing, implicated Blankenship. And so maybe with his testimony and the testimony of, I think there's 2 other guys who have been sentenced to prison as a result of the Big Branch mining disaster. This was the longest sentence and the highest up on the chain of command. This guy who got sentenced yesterday had actually, get this, he had run the Big Branch mine. He oversaw operations. And he left the company just days before the explosion. He left. Didn't save him. Because what they got him on is while he was overseeing it, he admitted that he would warn the miners of impending safety inspections, and he actively, I guess, concealed violations such as excessive coal dust, which I believe is what they think triggered the deadly explosion. So anyway, it's somewhat satisfying to see some suits in that case getting jail time, but until the big kahuna, Don Blankenship, gets charged and convicted and sentenced, I don't think any real measure of justice will have been done. And speaking of measures of justice, the news of the growing gap between rich and poor in this country is, to me, another example of a glaring lack of justice. The headline says it all. The nation's richest 1% last year earned the largest share of national income since the year before the crash in the 20s. Now, what does that tell you? Never before has there been the kind of economy in which a tiny little slice of the country, 1%, get not only more than their share, and granted, we're not the kind of culture that doles out the exact same amount to everybody, but even in a capitalist culture, I can't believe that some people wouldn't argue that there's a point at which distribution of wealth does come into play if you want a functioning society and a fair society. And we don't have it. Maybe we never did. I think maybe some of us got the wrong idea because we came up in the 50s and 60s, which was, maybe that was an unusual time, but that was when the middle class grew and in many ways triumphed. It was the American worker. That was the heyday. And it was the heyday because of unions, and it was the heyday because but people made living wages, and we don't do it anymore. So the very wealthiest Americans earned more than 19%. So 1% took home 19% of the income, which is the biggest share since 1928, the year before the stock market crash. So last year, and here's the thing that gets me. I heard this while I was driving into my garage yesterday. So the income of the top 1% in this country, last year, their income grew by 20%. How much did your income grow? I'm just asking. Because I know it didn't grow 20%. Because for the rest of us, the 99%, The 99% saw a 1% increase. "99% saw a 1% increase. 1% saw a 20% increase." What does that tell you? Huh? I find that intolerable. I do. I find it intolerable. And if people find that tolerable, then we've gone off the deep end. Now, let me tell you what... and I'm sort of stunned at what constitutes the top 1%. Because the top 1% had pre-tax incomes above $394,000. I'm surprised that's 1%. $394,000 and above is the 1%? Wow. Wow. And if you want to get in the top 10%, and here's where you know somebody in the top 10% for sure. Because in the top 10%, that is income exceeding $114,000 a year. And I think a lot of Americans don't have a sense of that. If you were to tell people making $114,000 or $115,000 a year, you're in the top 10%. You're rich. They don't think so. And I even understand why they don't think so. But it's quite clear that that gap, which is continuing to grow between those that have and those that don't, is a huge, huge, huge problem in this country. I think really the biggest problem. Because I think it's at the base of so many of the other issues we're failing to deal with. So maybe after World War II, when unions were strong, that was an anomaly. Maybe so. Maybe that was an anomaly. We should have enjoyed it more while we had it, huh? Okay, well, take a rich person out to lunch. They got all the money anyway. You might as well hand them over a little bit more. Tomorrow, Tom Sokolowski joins us, and I hope you do as well. Have a great day. Go Bucks.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.